Continue meeting. It's always funny. I'm sitting here staring at the screen. I'm not sure if we're live yet or not. I believe we're live now. So good afternoon, lovely people. It's Marie here, and I am joined by the beautiful Carolyn Alessi. And I want to take one thing up front. Carolyn and I are not related. We just happen to have the same surname. So we do get this question all the time because we also live in the same community, or at least used to live. Carolyn's moved away now. And it was always like, oh, is that your sister, your sister-in-law? No, we are not related. But the reason why I brought Carolyn in here today is because we have this very hot topic of suicide prevention. And lately, in the last couple of days, it's been quite an intense topic that really flared up in this group on various levels, in various corners, from various people within this movement. And I felt very, very strongly about asking Carolyn to come and talk to me, because Carolyn works with the topic of suicide prevention on a daily basis. She works for Mates in Construction, and I'm going to get you to introduce yourself to our beautiful audience right now. Carolyn, can you say a few words and what you actually do on a daily basis before we get into it?
Great. Thanks, Marie, for inviting me here today. I'm a case manager field officer for an organisation. It's a charity, Mates in Construction. We were started up to be primarily to help the industry in regards to suicide prevention, as we found out from studies that we had highlighted risks and suicides in our industry, like a lot of other industries, and we've rolled out to mining and energy as well, which have high rates of suicide. So for me personally, in my role as a case manager, I do go out on sites and train people to look out for the warning signs, what to do, how to ask about suicide, that sort of thing. But my primary role as a case manager is to help individuals. It's not face-to-face, it's mainly over the phone. So that when people are in need or in crisis or spiralling down to having thoughts of suicide or just doing it tough, doesn't necessarily have to be suicide at that stage, and then I can have a chat and lead them in the right direction. Look, I am not a counsellor. I don't pretend to be a counsellor. But when we don't, at Mates in Construction, we don't deliver the services as counsellors, but we can make sense of what's going on and make it clear and direct people, because a lot of the time that's what people need. When they're in crisis, they can't see clearly. And me doing this on a daily basis for work, I've had lots of experience doing this job for 7.5 years plus. So I've experienced quite a lot in that time. So it doesn't faze me, whatever stories going on, and then I can just make sense and lead people in the right direction and normalise what people are going through, because it's pretty much all normal when grief and so forth. It's a normal reaction to any normal event when it does actually happen.
So I believe that is a really, really valid point that you make here. Hi Selena, that you realize that whatever you're going through right now can be quite a normal thing, yet you just lose the ability temporarily to actually have that outside perspective and to go like, what I'm going through is okay. It will pass. It's really intense for you right now. So I want to go through, I've prepared a couple of questions, and we'll take the conversational style as always, but there are a couple of really of key questions for me here that I want to cover. And the very first one for me is, how do we actually read the signs? This is for me from an outside as well as an inside perspective. If that happens to me, what would be the first signs that I feel that are coming up? But in particular also, from an outside perspective, when I am dealing with someone who might be in a really dark place, and it might not even get to a stage of suicidal thoughts yet, but it can already get quite. So how do we read the signs? Because they're not always quite clear or easy to read.
Yeah, and some are very, very subtle, so it's very difficult. But generally, it comes under three categories. One is the first one, what you may know about someone. So, for instance, a family crisis, a loss. Look, everybody in your group have had a loss of some sort, and so that's a trauma in itself. A separation, divorce, relationship breakdowns that can add to it. And the anniversaries, of the death of a loved one, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, look, all those sorts of things can really rock people. Some people can cope really, really well. Others, it's very, very traumatic. Look, it could be invitations such as drugs and alcohol dependence as well can escalate the issues, and historical mental illnesses and well-being concerns there, and financial crisis. Look, we're all suffering there in COVID-19. So people are going through losses in your group. That's the primary reason for your support group. And if they're having some family issues and financial problems and history of mental illness, look, that could be a compounding recipe, basically. So that's things you may know. So that's one category. Then things you might notice.
Can I just pause it there quickly? Because I feel I really want to highlight this. I feel this is a really, really beautiful, well, maybe not so beautiful, but important thing that you just said there, the compound effect, you know, that sometimes it's often not just one thing, you know, it's that ongoing, hey, Terry, hey, Marilda, the beautiful people are joining us here. It's often not, it starts with one thing and you're like, whoa, that's bad. And you sort of get to terms with it or learn to cope with it, but then another thing. And it's like, it's almost like you're walking up a hill and somebody keeps adding like rocks in your backpack. And, you know, each one of those rocks is not heavy to carry, but at the end of the day, when you keep adding to the pile and the backpack is getting heavier, that's the image that I get. You're like, at some stage, it's just a breaking point, you know, you're like, I just have to put this back down. I can't carry this anymore. So yeah, please continue. I just really wanted to highlight that because it's the compound effect. Because often people look at it from the outside and go like, but that's not that bad and that's not that bad. Well, none of it in itself is that bad. None of those rocks in itself is so heavy, but the compound effect of it can be quite detrimental.
Yeah, it's impossible for us to determine someone else's pain level, though. Yeah. And you know, the backpack analogy is one I use on a regular basis, and that all those things actually have to be dumped, and that's generally where someone professional would be the best advice there. Yeah. But say for instance a relationship breakup. I've got a case at the moment that it was like 4 months together, so it wasn't a serious thing or anything like that, and taken that individual a long time to get over that relationship breakup. Where other people that I had a marriage breakdown. I was married for 13 and a half years. We're together 18 years, and that broke down. Yes, it was really, really difficult, but I got through that a lot. It appears a lot better than this young guy that is struggling to get over. So we can't determine someone else's pain in that regard. So if we
also don't know what came with that, you know, even though it was only 4 months, that might have been the most intense and most important 4 months in his life. You just don't know. You don't know what it triggers, what it brings up, what the relationship patterns were that might have been, you know, there's just so many factors that come together. It's like from the outside, you say, oh, it's only been 4 months. It's easier said than done from the outside, but when you live it on the inside and cope with whatever it triggers for you, it's very different. You know?
And it's like a grief, relationship breakup, marriage breakdowns, that sort of thing is like a grief. So there's no particular time frame when you should get over it or how you should get over it. But you know, sometimes you might get to a point yourself and saying, "Hey, I've got to move on." Yeah, and it's got to come from within before you can move on. Yeah. So that's sidetracking. The number two thing, so it's what you may know about an individual and what you do know in your group. One's had a loss, and most people have experienced losses in their lives. If they haven't, they will. It's guaranteed. Yeah. So
it's unfortunate that is the one thing that's guaranteed, that at some stage in our lives we're all
going to go through it. Yeah. So the next thing is category is things you might notice in somebody. The changes is what I'm talking about here. Like someone becomes moody, really, really happy is a warning sign if they're not normally, or very, very sad constantly, becoming distant, keeping to themselves, not going to social functions, attitude changes, even appearances can change. Increased use of drugs and alcohol to get through is a big one. Risk taking, don't care about whether they're here or not, that sort of thing, putting affairs in order. And those sorts of things can be very subtle, and you may only get one little piece of the puzzle, which generally you don't know everything about everybody. That's impossible. So I hear daily that there was no warning signs. Statistically, there's always warning signs. 99.9% of the time there's warning signs, but without knowing what they look like, they can be missed. And some of them are so subtle. Yeah. My last category is things you might hear from that person. You might hear that they're lonely. And if someone's had a loss, that part of the puzzle has been taken away now. So there is going to be some parts of loneliness. But it's very, very hard, and it takes time to, I guess, to rebuild that puzzle and have the new normal, what that looks like. People may feel hopeless and helpless in their situation and can't see the light at that particular time, want to escape. And they may say things like, I've had a gutful, I can't take it anymore, I just can't do it. That could mean that they are thinking of suicide or not coping. There's only one way we're going to find out, and that's by coming out clearly and boldly and saying that's really disturbing me. Have you had enough of work today or whatever is happening, or have you had enough of life? There's a big difference there. Statistically,
I really love that you say that, Carolyn, because I know, like in my group, obviously we're dealing with the topic of loss, with the topic of suicide quite a lot. And as I said, the last couple of days, I really felt this flare up around the topic of suicide because it came from so many different levels. Like literally Monday, Tuesday, last 2 days have been so intense, hence we brought on this spontaneous interview. And I also know that I remember like 1 or 2 comments have been made by new members in the group, and I'm not going to name and shame. It's not about who said what, when. It's about the fact that things were said around, this is all too much, I can't take this anymore. And I did reach out because, you know, Carolyn, I'm going to share this here as well. When I started Loving Life After Loss, I did come to you and participated in a suicide prevention course, not with the intention to use that as a tool, but with the intention to protect myself, to make sure that I learn how to read the signs. When people say things, when people make comments, that I can, catch them before they are falling and redirect them, because I think that the redirecting is the biggest part, because I'm not a counsellor, you're not a counsellor, but knowing how to read the signs, and when you're not sure, to actually ask the question directly. That is one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the course that I did with you, to actually go out. And I did send a private message to this lady and said, I have to ask you, you made this comment, are you actually considering of taking your life? And she's like, oh, no. I just, I was just in such overwhelm. And I said, that's okay. I'm grateful to hear that. I just need to make sure, because I take things like that quite seriously when people make comments like that. And I think it was a good thing for her to be heard, to see somebody cares, and to also put the awareness on, oh, no, I'm actually not thinking about suicide because somebody asked me, and it gave her the chance to set that clear in her mind as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, education is very critical in this field, and look, I recommend it for most people. Not everybody's in a place to do it, but it is very, very critical in that fact, because when someone's doing it tough, Marie, it's very, very hard to say, put the hand up and say, hey, I need help. I'm sinking here.
Oh, absolutely.
That is, we're human beings. We're not wired up to necessarily do that. Some people do quite willingly, that's fine. But a lot of people, they go that they're really, really hard to ask for help. So people,
and it doesn't even have to come to, it doesn't even have to come to suicidal thoughts. Like I know when I was in my grieving process, when I had like really the heavier days, as in, I don't know how to get through this. I mean, I luckily never thought like that. I don't know how to get through this. I have to say I was quite equipped, luckily, with knowing who to ask, who to turn to. But reaching out and saying, I do need help, or can you come past and just sit with me, is really hard. I really struggled with that. It was often the, that we talk about that in the group, the feeling of I'm a burden if I do reach out. How would people react? What if they are not available? Then it's better I don't even ask, because it's a fear of rejection as well. So that's a really big thing to reach out when you're already feeling really low, and the lower you go, the harder it is to actually say, I need help here.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And I guess as individuals, we should take responsibility for doing that, for our own well-being, but it's really hard. Like, for the reasons you said, because you may think, oh no, everyone else is too busy, they've got their own problems themselves, I might be rejected. They don't. So quite often people will send out little hints in that sort of at those times. But if we miss them and are not aware of what it might look like, that's when it could happen. Yeah. And
how might these little hints look like?
Pardon?
What could these little hints look like?
Well, say for instance, someone texts you and says, "What are you up to today?" Or just something simple like that. Are you working today? And you might think nothing of it, and you might be really flat out busy, and you go, "Oh, I didn't think any about that because I'm consumed in my world. I'm busy." Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean everybody else is busy. Yeah. It's like this COVID-19, what's going on right now, and people would be feeling isolated. They're not able to do their normal things, and if they're going through a lot of grief and just struggling to get out of bed each day, it's going to escalate things. And just getting out the front door could be a challenge. Yeah. And so it can be a tough time, really, really tough time for individuals. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. In particular, like I often say when I remember one case where I hadn't even started the movement. Rob was still alive. I was in my old coaching practice, and I had somebody reach out to me, like quite directly saying, "I'm not coping. I'm really thinking of ending my life." And I was like, "Oh my God, what do I do? I'm not equipped. I'm not a counsellor." And I remember just saying to her, "You meet me there at that time. Please promise me you're not doing anything stupid till then. I needed these 20 minutes to get my kids off to school and be there." I did not want to do that with my kids around. So I thought, okay, kids to school. It was like right in the middle of making lunch boxes. And I remember the first thing I did was to ring a friend of mine. They work in positive psychology. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't know. I need somebody to refer her onto because I am not equipped. I'm going to stabilize her as much as I can, but how do I do it? And so they gave me these tips to, find a positive psychologist. I, after that, built a network where I knew as soon as I have that topic, where can I refer them onto locally, online. So I've got a little list now of positive psychologists where I can instantly go like, here, talk to this person, or at least this person can help you further or redirect you. And the one thing she said to me, I'll never forget this, was change your physiology straight away. Go out in nature, brisk walk, shoulders back, make sure she breathes, open up this, like, I was like, wow. And then, COVID-19, I have had a conversation with a lady just this morning, and it's like, I can't even go out, because for me, the first go-to is always go into nature. Nature is so healing, it's really but with COVID-19, have you got any tips or tricks for us that people can do? It sounds very bizarre, in the comfort of their own home, like when they don't have the option to leave home. What can you do? Yeah. What are the coping mechanisms? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, very, very interesting question. And I've been working from home for some time, and in my job, I can. And I have days where I don't even go outside, or several days in a row. And I go, oh, maybe I should go outside. But look, I'm okay because I've just moved into a new place, and it's a nice environment and big enough to walk around and go outside, sit in the sun for a little while, and even pot around the garden for a little minute. But some people don't have that luxury. Previously, in between houses, I was living in a one-bedroom unit, and there was nowhere to go. So if I was there for one whole day, I had to get out the next day. Doesn't matter where I went, when I went shopping or go somewhere, it would really, really affected my mental health. And look, I don't normally have, I don't have mental illness, but that did really affect me, and I could see I needed to do something about it. Whether gyms are open now, which is fabulous, but people can go for a walk. That you can go for a walk now. Go for a walk around your environment. Do some exercise in your own house if you're motivated enough. Unfortunately, I'm not motivated to do that. I love going to the gym, which I haven't gone for months, but do some sort of exercise and drink plenty of water like you are right now, obviously, and limiting alcohol and other drugs and stuff like that. It's obviously not going to be healthy for anybody. So
July, it's the 1st of July today, so join me.
Yeah, and doing constructive things and healthy things, and I've got many cases that also do a lot of self-care online as well, but that most things are quite okay, but do obviously have to be careful if they're not that helpful. Yeah, but it's very hard to discern.
Give us a bit of an idea of what self-care online can look like. Have you got some examples?
Well, I've got a case at the moment that did a webinar with a coach, a life coach, I believe, and I think you've done this sort of thing, Marie. But look, I've been encouraging him to go and see a psychologist for his for the reasons he needs to, because he's had a couple of attempted suicide. So it's a serious matter what he's going through, and then he's revealed some childhood trauma that he's never ever addressed. Now, I'm not going to put down life coaches and stuff like that. They have a place, but when someone's really traumatized by a childhood, a very serious trauma, and they've suppressed it for nearly 40 years, that needs someone very professional to help him bring it to the surface.
I'm really glad that you bring that up, Carolyn, because I always make a big point about that as well when people do come to me and seek help in things like that. And I am a highly trained coach, I'm a highly experienced coach, but I'm not a counselor. And there are certain things that I do not touch, and all I do is redirect. And that is definitely suicide, that is clinical depression, that is PTSD, that is trauma. These are the things that I cannot address. And I know that when I started Loving Life After Loss, I knew that it was a very fine balancing act waiting to happen, ongoing for me starting this movement, because you know, I do run courses here in this movement and on various levels, and I absolutely love them because I teach people tools how to cope with their grief, with their emotions and all of that. But when it comes to suicide, when it comes to real trauma, PTSD, things like that, I cannot address that in those courses. The courses are for those who are on a healing journey and need a helping hand, and I love doing that because it's rewarding. But when this topic comes in, all I become is a redirection post and go like, okay, I hear you, I've got you, but this person can help you. I can only hold space for you. I can't heal you. I can't help you any further than holding space for you and listening to you. But you do need to get support, and I highlight it in every talk that I have with various people about that. So I'm really glad you mentioned that, because there is a space for a coach and there's a space for a counselor, a positive psychologist, a clinical psychologist, you name it. You know, they all have a very, very important role to play, and I would not, you know, put any of them down. There's a place for all of us here. It's really important.
Yeah, and it's spot on. So people like yourself and I can, and I'm like a conduit for people that come to me. And look, I've done a Bachelor of Social Science and a diploma in community services work, but I will never say that I'm a counsellor. Well, most of my clientele wouldn't talk to me if I said I was a counsellor anyway, and I don't want to be that. I want to be the conduit for people to actually get that professional one-on-one, intense at times therapy that they may need. So I give people the options. It's up to them to take them. I don't force anything upon anybody. But just with my experience and my education, I suppose, I can give people the options. And I've put a big resource register together that I've created over the years, and that people have told me they've used and so forth, which is fabulous. Yeah. And giving people options is the most important thing. I remember a psychologist, I was at a meeting or something, this psychologist said it's not what people do, it's the options that are given to an individual, that they know that they've got options to take. And unfortunately, when people are in the midst of a crisis, possibly they don't necessarily see clearly and can't see those options that generally would be clear to them. That's why they need people like yourself or I to come to and say, hey, this is the situation, and get some clarity around that, where to go. What's the first step to get help? Yeah.
I think that's a really good one as well. You know, the first step, as in help them step by step, because they are not seeing clearly in that very moment, you know, and that's, made this very mistake quite often at the very beginning of my coaching journey, that I felt like, but they all know that, it's that it's almost a bit of the imposter syndrome as well sometimes, they're like, but they all know that. Why would, and then you realize, oh, well, they might or might not know, but even if they do, they can't really see that right now. They need to be reminded, and that's often in a coaching journey as well. When I do sit with a client in a group setting, in a one-on-one, doesn't really matter, and then you're talking about things, I'm like, yeah, I know that, and I'm like, oh, but I did need to hear that right now, and I think that is a really, really big one. That we can often play this very important role of being the reminder of what they already knew but needed to hear in that very moment,
Look, everybody in your group, Marie, are experts in their own grief and how to manage it in a way. It just might need a bit of prodding every now and then on what is healthy, because it's really, really important to know that there's no timeline or right way to grieve, whether it's in regards to a loss due to an illness or loss to suicide. I know a loss to suicide does become more complicated, very, very complicated, and in the fact that there's a lot of unanswered questions. And it can take longer to get through it, but there are some things that everybody can do, practical stuff.
I do want to talk about that in a moment, but before we go there, I actually want to ask you something else. So we've talked about what are the signs that could be very, very subtle signs, or sometimes they're really hard to read, but knowing them might bring them more into our forefront of awareness. Then we talked about, what can we do if we see that, and, offering help, reaching out for help. What can we do if somebody's listening to this right now and is in that very situation where I'm like, yeah, I'm having these thoughts, or I'm not coping, or I am in a really dark place? What can we say to them right now, for those listening in, when they do feel these signs? What can we tell them what to do, where to go, who to reach out to?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there's actually many resources out there to go to, whether it's a phone call to a helpline, and there's a number of those helplines available. If it's like in the middle of the night, obviously a helpline would be good, and I can run through. I've got a list of helplines which could be helpful to.
I'd love to share them as well later.
Yeah, I can.
But you can run through the main ones.
Yeah. Well, everybody's heard of Lifeline. It's
is that just Australia wide, or?
That'd be Australia wide, because I've actually got it's an interesting question, because I wrote down there's a website, Befrienders Worldwide. So that's a suicide prevention worldwide. So it'd be a matter of logging on, Googling it, and seeing what is available.
We can share the link as well later on in the comments below.
Yeah, so that's something for other countries, because I've had that situation before.
Yeah, because we do have people from all around the globe in this group.
Yeah.
The majority of the audience in here is from the US and Australia. That's our main two groups here, but we are all over the world, so it would be really good to have something international.
Yeah, I don't know the exact name of what the US have, but they would have along similar lines to, say, a Lifeline.
Yeah.
And we've got also suicide callback service, which is a very, very good service. A lot of people haven't heard of that one, but it's actually really, really good, because they will call you back and they will check in with you. And also they're very, very good for individuals that are bereaving by suicide. So they specialise in that. And Lifeline is very, very good. It's made up of a lot of volunteers, though. So if you ring Lifeline a number of times, you'll more than likely get very, very different people. It's a service, a great service. Both are available 24/7 for like phone counselling and stuff like that. But not necessarily counselling by a psychologist. These are just counsellors that have done the assist, which is the same as what you and I have done, Marie. And so they've done a little bit more training and so forth. So there's Lifeline, suicide callback. Mates in Construction, who I work for, we're primarily funded for the construction industry, mining and energy industries and their immediate families. But, if someone comes to me, I never knock anybody back, obviously. I'd never, ever, ever do that. But that's our primary focus in those industries. And we do virtually the same as what Lifeline or Suicide Callback do in that it's a crisis line immediately, but we do something further. When someone rings our helpline, we will make contact and follow up with them with a case manager, and that's my role. So if anyone rings our 24/7 helpline, I'm the first point of call basically for all of New South Wales. So that's my primary role. And the thing is, we're a small team, so you'll get the same person. Like I had someone, a case come back to me yesterday that I spoke to, I think 4 years ago, basically. So that's not unusual, which is really, really helpful for individuals that you can remember what's going on for them. Well, I've got notes, so I can't remember about everybody.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So it makes it a little bit more personable in that area. But look, if you're worried about someone, it's a critical situation, you've got to get the police involved. And can ring 000.
That often takes a lot of courage to do that phone call, because you're like, am I exaggerating? Am I not? Can I think I'd rather call the police, one too many times for nothing or for a positive outcome than wishing that I would have and look at it later. Like, why didn't I?
I encourage you to ring the police assistance line instead of 000. 000 is absolute critical if someone's about to kill themselves. But the police assistance line, and this is the same phone number throughout all of Australia. And obviously for your US viewers, I'm not sure what there is, but you can always Google things or whatever you can on the web to find out. Take people to hospital or see a GP. Most people that come to me, I always ask, have you checked in with a GP? When going through a lot of stress and trauma, stress can do so much to our bodies. It may not necessarily be the mental health that's a problem as well as there could be physical ailments as well. And without getting a checkup, like a basic blood test, sugars and all that sort of business that a GP would normally do on a regular basis, I really, really encourage people to do that, just to get it all checked out. Blood pressure might be through the roof. Go and check in with a reputable GP and possibly get a mental health plan like you were talking about before. There's a simple process and referral to a psychologist.
It is a really, really simple process. I want to highlight that as well, because I'm very openly sharing that in the group as well, because so often people think like, a mental health plan and there's something really seriously wrong with me. No, it doesn't have to be. Like, I don't feel like there's something seriously wrong with me. I actually feel I'm in a very, very good state in my life. I feel that I have healed a lot. I've processed a lot. I feel like I've come so far. Considering I only lost my husband 2 years ago, I feel like I'm in an extremely amazing space in my life, actually. And I'd say 95% of the time, I feel really great. But I do have my 5% where things are happening, or I'm falling apart, or a couple of times where I was just screaming because I had enough and I just burst. And I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? Oh, okay, I didn't manage my energy well. I didn't, and when I do see these signs and I'm like, oh, okay, I've been bursting once or twice this week, it's probably not good. I always make sure, like, I've had a mental health plan since I passed, because I want to make sure that I'm preventing things before they get any further. So I'm very proactive with my mental health plan. So it doesn't have to be anything necessarily wrong with you, even that I don't like the term, but often people feel like that. And I actually went and saw a positive psychologist shortly after Rob passed. I had a nervous breakdown about 3-4 weeks after he passed, where I ended up screaming on the kitchen floor. I've shared this many times very openly in my group. I'm okay with that, because I want people to understand it can happen to everyone, to anyone. People always think, oh, she's got her life together, she knows, and I don't want people to think when there's something going on, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. It can happen at any stage in your grieving journey that unexpectedly it just hits you. And I want you to understand it's okay to reach out and go to your GP and say, I need a mental health plan. I took one for a positive psychologist. I worked with her for 4 months, the beautiful Emily May. She comes in the group quite frequently for interviews. She's done amazing things for me, just to, reflect back, to help me with strategies, super simple and very, very effective and fast in my journey. And came back to see her for a couple of supervision sessions at the beginning of the year. And now I turn my mental health plan to EMDR sessions. I don't know if people know about EMDR. You can Google it. It's got something to do with recreating neural pathways and, with unhealthy memories, to attach something more proactive and beautiful to it in a very, very basic nutshell, explained. So I started that yesterday and going to another session tomorrow, actually, because we only got to the talking part, not to the actual doing part. But, it's something where I'm always aware of things. When things come up, for me, they come up because they want to be seen and they want to be healed. So I'm very proactive in my healing journey rather than waiting that it overwhelms me or that it gets to the part where I'm falling apart and screaming or whatever. It was very unpleasant. I don't want to experience that again. So now I'm super proactive with it. And when I feel signs or a part within me that comes up that wants to be healed, I'm embracing it now. I'm like, okay, come here. Let's look at that. What is it? How can we help you best? And I do that. So I'm sharing this so openly because I don't want anybody ever to think there's something wrong with me. When you feel like something's coming up, look at it, what it is, and allow that healing. Go and get a mental health plan. There's nothing wrong with that. It's available for everyone, and it's so helpful on your healing journey. So I really wanted to highlight that part.
And that's all normal what you go through, Marie. That's normal. Yeah. You have your roller coaster. Everybody has roller coasters in their grief. That's absolutely normal. Absolutely. And can be really tough. Some dark days, and for whatever reason, something could just tip you over the edge, and you're not coping for that particular day. So that's all normal stuff, and we have to normalize it and encourage people that aren't traveling all that well to check in with their GP. It's as simple as that, and I do recommend to highlight a reputable GP as well.
Yes,
and that's really, really important. A lot of people suffer from panic attacks and things like that. Look, we're no experts in that. And when someone's having a panic attack, sometimes it can feel like they're having like a heart attack, and they're really stressed and so forth, and that's going to make it worse. So it's really, really important to get medical assistance. And look, it's easy enough for all of us to go and see a GP to get checked up, but make sure it's a good one, and it's a very, very important thing to do.
Trust your gut instinct. If you don't feel like you're on the right hands, you're probably not. You need to go to someone where you feel seen and heard with your pain, and just if you don't feel that, then please go and look for somebody else. It's okay. You can change your GP if you don't feel like you're in good hands.
Oh, that's what I was going to say something else, Marie, that quite often what stops individuals from going to admit that, hang on, I'm not coping very well, is the pride, the ego, those sorts of things get in the way of us saying, hey, you do need help. A lot of people, suicide that are they help other people sort of thing. They're the go-to person, but when they need help, they don't feel like they can actually go and ask somebody else because they're the go-to person. Quite often it happens. The social person, the socialite type thing, it happens unfortunately on a regular basis with those sorts of people where most people around just wouldn't even recognise that they'd be doing it tough. Most people in this group would think that, oh yeah, Marie's got her act together. Marie doesn't have her act together all the time. That's impossible. No. Nobody has.
No, I don't. I don't. Sometimes I would drive in my car, and my car is branded with Loving Life After Loss, and I remember, not too long ago, I had the 2-year anniversary of Rob's passing, and I have to say it hit me so much harder than I expected, so much harder. And that day, I literally had a screaming attack in the car. I lost it. I could feel it coming. I told the boys, and I said, look, you're really pushing me. Can you just, and I'm not putting the responsibility on them. It's like, I told you and you didn't. But it just went on and on, and I could feel it. I'm like, I'm about to snap. I'm like, if they don't, really calm down now, and they were hit, hack, and at each other and and all of a sudden I was like, do you know what day it is? And I just burst, and I could not stop screaming. I completely lost it. And that's when I realized how much has been building up, and I could feel it building up. And people always say, oh, often the build up is so much harder than the actual day. I'm like, no, it feels different. I can feel there's a lot still there that is coming up now to be healed. And I screamed, and in hindsight I was sitting there going like, I'm sitting there in my car, Loving Life After Loss. People are driving past and seeing this crazy lady screaming, and I'm like, I don't always have to.
I just visualize that.
I'm very transparent with that, I'm absolutely authentic with my
And
journey
that's
here,
okay.
and I don't always have my act together, and that's okay, as long as you know who to go to and what to do with it, and to allow that in, but to allow it in, not to destroy you, but to heal it. That's a really big part of it, you know.
Yeah, we all need to be vulnerable at times, and that's okay. It's okay to
Yeah,
get help. It does help in the
yeah.
long run to get that extra help when you need it.
Yeah, I just want to quickly read one comment there. Sorry, I need my glasses for that. Marilda had just shared, you know, I can totally relate to the panic attack that felt like a heart attack, not pleasant, but changed my life, and I've got out to a better one. So I'm really glad that you shared that, Marilda, because, you know, you work in quite a similar field to me. So, yeah, it's really, it needs people to speak up about it openly and go like, it is okay, things do happen, yet you just need to be prepared and know who to talk to and who to reach out to. So yeah,
And
I've been Carolyn
anxiety,
a couple of times. I'm like, what do I do with that? I don't know what to do. And yeah, it's been very
anxiety is
helpful.
very debilitating, Marie. I've
Yeah,
had spoken to many people, and most people suffer from anxiety to a certain degree. But when
yeah,
it's over the top and really debilitating, where it doesn't allow people
yeah,
to actually go to work or walk out the door and function normally, that is so common. And I just want
yeah,
to urge everybody, if you're feeling like that, get some help. I remember at a talk I went to, and this big burly construction guy got up to on a construction site to all the high vis guys and stuff like that, and saying, hey, if you feel like you've got anxiety, do something about it. I suffered from it for 4 or 5 years, didn't know what was going on.
yeah,
I went to my GP, and now we manage it together between
yeah,
his GP and him, and he is fine now, can function normally, as normal as anybody else can function.
yeah,
But don't not do something about it. That's the thing.
yeah,
Recognizing it and go, hey, this is not normal.
yeah,
And
yeah,
some people in the grief, well, they say the grief cycle and stuff like that, if you don't think it's normal, go and see someone. Go and see your
yeah,
GP and say, hey, I'm a little concerned about this. What do you think? Is
yeah,
this normal? Is this not normal? Because
yeah,
everybody's different, and it could be
yeah.
perfectly okay. I don't want to alarm anyone, but you just never know what could be going on there.
And also, like, yeah, what you said, you know, because I want to read this one more comment out, because it's exactly what you've just talked about. And I really want to thank you, Kay, for sharing this so openly, because it's so important. And I'm grateful that you are that authentic with your journey as well. Kay says, I can relate to this so much. I really struggle to tell people how I'm feeling. And when I went to the doctor, they just ignored me, saying that I felt so sad. I need to find another doctor. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes, you do need to find another doctor. I'm really grateful that you're sharing this, because as I said before, trust your gut instinct. If you don't feel they're hearing you, just, you know, go to somebody else. This is so important, because if you don't feel heard or seen or understood in what you're going through, then you're probably not in the best hands. So you can always trust your gut instinct.
yeah. It's an important aspect there. If you don't feel like the doctor is doing you any positive service, you've got to
Yeah,
change, because
yeah,
we know ourselves better than anybody else does. And if it's
yeah,
not right, talk to the GP. And if
yeah.
they're not getting satisfactory there, go and find another one, because you've got to actually have that trust in that GP. But
Yeah,
rely on your own gut feeling and your own body, and say, hey, this is not normal. This is not normal for me.
yeah,
Okay. And do something about it.
exactly. I love that you said that. This is not normal for me. And that's
Yes.
all that counts. You don't need to compare yourself to anybody else, whether other people think it's normal or not. If it doesn't feel normal to you,
Yeah.
then please do something about it. It's really
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
It is.
Carolyn, I want to address one quite heavy question here as well, but this is what we're here to talk about. So we've talked a lot about suicide prevention, how to read the signs, what we can do, who to reach out to trust your gut instinct, find the right doctor, find the right resources. We will share a resource document. It's really, really important for me. I've been working on this for so long in the background, and I still haven't shared it. So maybe you and I could sit together. I'm putting you on the spot here. and create a resource document that I can also share with this group here. And I'll also help with the research and finding some more international numbers and websites, etc. It is really, really important to me that you guys in this group have a resource document to get back to, numbers to get back to, options to choose from. So maybe you and I can make that a little project that we can, because you've already created quite a beautiful resource document, so I can see what of that can be helpful to my group as well, so we can share that. And truth is, though, that we cannot help or save lives in all the cases. There are, unfortunately, a lot of cases of suicide worldwide, not just Australia-wide. So I do want to ask this heavy question. When it does happen and somebody really takes that final step and takes their own life, how can the people surrounded by this person, the people that are left behind, have you got some sort of coping mechanisms, strategies? What do you do? Because I can only imagine that the first huge emotion that you're left with is probably guilt. Could there have been something I could have said or done? Like, what can we share with the audience about that? Because that's quite one of the heaviest questions, obviously, when it did happen.
Yeah, look, it's not a one-word answer for that, Marie. Unfortunately, in Australia, we lose 8 people to suicide on average every single day. 6 are males and 2 are females. That's our statistics day in, day out, like on average. So it's over 3,000 every year. And I know for you Americans there that your figures are way, way higher than that. But with our population, that's still, it's not acceptable and so forth. So that is more than double the road toll. So put it in context there. So this is a serious, serious issue that we've got. And how do we cope after suicide is really, really important, because this is part of suicide prevention also, to cope when suicide has happened, because the ramifications of losing someone to suicide is that the people left behind could think, oh, look, I can't live. I want to join that person. It's just all too hard. So look, being aware of what you may feel, it's going to be different to, say, losing someone that is quite aged and ill. So a suicide loss is going to be different. It could be unable to sleep, or you have nightmares. I'm just going to read through a bit of a list here that we've put a brochure together, which is really, really helpful to actually normalise what you could be going through. It could be sad, crying, anger, confusion, depressed feelings and mood swings, irritability and edginess, blaming yourself or guilt. Now, that's a really big one, and it's tough to get through. But and the thing is, you get unanswered questions in that, and finding out the bottom line of why that person suicided. Loss of concentration, reduced work performance, confusion around why they suicided, shame that someone has died. Yeah, there's a big shame there as well. Still, there's a stigma. And increased drugs and alcohol. And there could be some physical things that happen for an individual, not only crying, but there could be diarrhea, there could be difficulty concentrating. People can have amnesia as well, loss of memory, fuzzy head, loss of appetite, headaches. Those sorts of things can be created from someone a loss to suicide. And it could be escalated depending on your relationship with that individual and your last words with that individual, last interaction. It could escalate that. Now, what can help, basically? And this is just a very basic run-off of different things that can help.
It's a huge question,
Getting some physical exercise, even if you don't feel like it, do something, some sort of physical exercise. Try and eat well. You know, you may not feel like eating, but just even a mouthful or a small amount, and try to return to any sort of usual routines to form a new routine, which, you know, could look differently, which I spoke about previously. Spending time with people that are important in your life, really, really important, but you do have to filter out the people that are not going to be helpful. And I know, Marie, you had to do this in the early days too, spending time with the right people. And that could be time with your pet. I know I saw your dog there in the background. That was which can be very, very, very important, just to pat your dog and stuff like that, or if you're a cat person or so forth. Talk about how you're feeling with trusted friends. with trusted friends. I highlight that because you don't want to feel judged, and that's probably the hardest thing. Try and get some sleep, even if it's a small amount. You may need to see a doctor to help you with that, or natural stuff.
I do want to pause you for 1 second, because we, as you know, like yesterday, I had this beautiful interview with Emma Woolrich, who came into the group to talk about sleep and sleep deprivation and how to actually fall in love with sleep again. So I'm saying that because not everybody has watched it, and I want to highlight that because Emma has actually offered a beautiful gift to just this group. So I need to put like a little ad break in there right now. We're starting next week already. Emma's doing a 5-day fall in love with sleep again challenge, and I'll be on it because honestly, that is the one thing I still have not tackled since Rob passed. I have not had one single night of sleeping through since Rob died, and it's been 2 years. So I'll be in the challenge with you guys, and I know some of you watching this have already joined as well and signed up for it. And it is such a beautiful gift. She's even offering it for half price. It's only $47 US. So if you are struggling with sleep, please come and join me next week, because I want to learn how to fall in love with sleep again. It's a really, really big one in terms of dealing with grief, dealing with dark thoughts, dealing with day-to-day challenges, and also it's a huge part of the healing journey, really. So thank you for mentioning that. I needed to pause you there quickly.
And Marie, it is not just important, it is critical to get good sleep.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I've got a case that he hadn't had a decent night's sleep, very, very little sleep in 4 weeks. And then before you know it, he lost it. He wasn't thinking straight. You could just see down a black hole at that moment, and attempted suicide, a serious attempt. So he's not feeling suicidal at normal once he's had decent sleep now, but it just compounded, and people cannot function or think straight when they haven't had a lot of sleep. You can do this in a crisis period of time, but that can't go on forever. We need to do, whether it's a situational change or whether it could be a medical change that you have to do, or obviously this, and I haven't seen this, what strategies are used. There's many strategies that people can use in that regards. So I really, really encourage, if you're not getting really good sleep, it is vital. Yeah, I love my sleep.
Absolutely vital. Yeah,
between 7 and 9 hours is what we need. Okay. Some of us would rather the 9, but some work on 7. Yeah.
I would love to get 8. That feels like my ideal number. I get between 3 and 6 most nights, so it's not good.
It's not enough. Yeah.
No.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so going on with my list, remember, some people may experience strong emotions and feeling, others won't experience any changes at all. So that's okay. Be okay if you're not. And it could be delayed as well by days, weeks, years, months.
Yeah.
Your trauma, your grief could actually be delayed, and something else could actually trigger it off. And we're talking about if someone dies by suicide here, which can be the same as losing anybody, really, but it could be escalated when it's suicide. And seek support from services if you're still experiencing extreme feelings after 2 weeks. So if it's still extreme after 2 weeks, go and seek support. But I'm not saying just wait for 2 weeks. If you believe you need support, do it straight away. Don't hesitate. And if someone encourages you to seek help, because we know that's a hard thing to do, to ask for help, just go with it. Leave all your pride and ego, and you've got to be vulnerable and go, yes, I need help right now. And then think, look, I can tell my story to other people, to encourage other people to get the help when they need it. And we all need help.
I also want to quickly put another reminder out there, because I understand the nature of it and how hard and challenging it can be to reach out for support when you are feeling low. I want to put the reminder out there. I've actually brought something into this group, and there are a lot of new members, so I'm just going to highlight that again. If you feel like you need support and you feel not strong enough to reach out, just put a black love heart in the comments or as a post in a group. And I ask that all the time, if you put a black love heart, I will make sure that one of my team members or myself will reach out to you and check in on you. So just comment with a black love heart on any post, or as a comment, or as a post in the group. It doesn't matter. As soon as I see a black love heart, I will reach out. So I luckily do have team members around the world now, my beautiful moderators, some of them are watching here, that help me out, because I am not, as little as I sleep, I'm not awake 24/7, and I'm not in the group 24/7. So be patient, but rest assured that somebody will reach out to you when you put a black love heart in a post or in a comment.
And that's why we have 24/7 helplines, Marie, for people that they are manned, or someone can talk to you 24/7. So
I am not a helpline. I'm just trying, and I'm saying that very clearly here. I'm not a helpline, but I do want to have that as an additional tool in here when people feel like they don't know where to turn. And for me, that's the same thing. It's a redirection thing. If I see that, I'll make sure that I will touch base with that person to redirect them to a resource document, which I will hopefully put together very soon, or to various helplines, and make sure that they have support, because I find that of utmost importance to have support in life.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we need to take care of ourselves whenever we've lost anybody, and in particular in regards to suicide. Take care of yourself, whatever that means, physically, mentally. Take time out. Don't be too hard on yourself. Obviously, limiting drugs and alcohol, there's a bit of a temptation there to drown your sorrows and help. But if you know you're getting into a pattern of drinking too much or taking drugs, you've got to make note of that and go, hang on, this is not good for me long term. It's really important to be self-aware.
That's a huge thing. Self-awareness and self-care, self-love. All the self stuff.
Be kind to yourself. No rushing. There's no set time frame for any of this. Be kind. If you need to time out, stuff like that. Even if someone's going through a lot of anxiety, I've got a case that has worked non-stop for probably 3 years and hasn't had a holiday of any sort. And that he says, no, I'm leaving this job. It's stressed me. It's abusive, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have 3 weeks off now and take time out, and don't feel guilty about it. Sometimes we need to go, no, time out. And I know I've moved a new house recently, and we've had people coming over virtually every weekend, and I go, and I need to have one weekend. I don't have to cook for others. I absolutely love it. Love entertaining. Love having people over. Absolutely love it. I thrive on it.
I love it in 2 weeks.
But I need one weekend of not having to do that.
Awesome. Just one weekend to put up your feet. I get that a lot, because lately I've been shut. I literally had many nights where I was up till midnight, and sometimes beyond that, just working on new training material, new courses. There are some such exciting things coming up for me in this group that I every now and then had to remind myself to go, like, you know what, today you just put up your feet and watch a movie, cuddle with your boys, whatever, I want to read out one more comment here that Shalina has posted. Shalina is one of my moderators. She's in Canada, and she said, in Canada we have free healthcare, but we don't have the ability to choose who we see. I know that is really tricky. We are assigned to someone, and that is our doctor. So no second opinions, no possibility of finding someone else if this particular GP isn't working out. I think all I can say, Shalina, unfortunately, I really feel that's a huge downfall. Really, it is so amazing when you have free medical help, and we had the same thing in Austria, where I come from originally. We had free medical help, yet we did have the choice who we go and see. So that, I really don't know what to say to that, Carolyn. Have you got any idea what to say to when you can't choose your GP? What other options have you got? Well, the other resources probably, as in, I don't know, Shalina, I'm not sure if you're still watching this or not, but are you able to get a mental health plan, as in at least choosing who you want to see? If you're not happy with your GP, it's probably not ideal, but at least can you choose which psychologist you want to see? I guess that would have to be an option. I can't see that.
It could be called something else, Marie, over in US. Mental health plan, but it's a basically a referral to a specialist, which is a psychologist.
And where Medicare takes part of the cost on as well. So
I guess we're privileged here in Australia that we can actually do that. Go and see a GP, and some have to pay a gap. Others, there's no gap. We're very
we're pretty lucky. In Austria, everything was supported and helped. And when I came here, I'm like, whoa, Austria was so much better. That when I look at the US, I'm like, oh, we're quite lucky in Australia. It's like who you compare yourself to is quite, there's such different availabilities. Not at all each psychiatrist, counsellor, etc. is assigned. Really, you can't even choose which psychiatrist or counsellor you see. Wow.
unless it's in the same practice or something like that. Yeah, well, that makes it difficult. So then you really need to rely on your supports around you, Marie, and those sort of, I mean, a GP or a psychologist don't have a magic wand and they're not going to fix everything. So it's a combination of, yes, medical professionals that are paid supports, but we all need friends, family, work colleagues, or you know, sporting colleagues, or whatever the case may be, to be around us. So we need all of that when we're doing it tough or really struggling. Everybody needs that. So if for instance, this, unfortunately, wherever she is located, that the paid supports are not adequate, then it falls onto them. But these people are not professionals. It's like, as a mum, I can't be a counsellor to my kids. I can only be the best mum I can be. And like, you can be the best mum to your kids, you can be the best friend to somebody else, but that's all you are. You're not a counsellor to that individual. Exactly. You're not a counsellor to your kids or your parents, whatever the case may be. So that's a real shame, but there would have to be some sort of resources there to help, one would think. Look, I don't know.
All right. Well, wow. I feel like I could still sit and talk to you for hours on end, but we have come to the end of our hour, Carolyn, and I believe for me, what I would really love to do, and we can happily chat off camera about that, I'd really love to sit with you and see how we can put a really fantastic resource document together, and I'm sure that you can help me get this started, and I'm more than happy to pour my own resources in and do my own research in terms of getting more international ones in, get my little helpers all around the world and ask them to send me their resources and really put it in a document together so people can actually have access to that in the group. I would absolutely love to share that. So all I can say for now is thank you so much for coming here today, because I feel it's one of those really, really important topics that we do need to talk about frequently. I love everything that you have shared with us. It is really the awareness, you know, open your senses, open your heart, trust your gut instinct. Often it's such a subtle little thing that you don't really think it's a sign. But when your gut instinct is telling you there's something wrong with a text message or something wrong with the way they looked or the way they said something, then trust your gut instinct. I feel this is a huge message that we need to get back to. Just trust your gut instinct. So is there anything final that that you want to share before we conclude this interview, Carolyn?
Just touching on there, when you do notice there's something going on and you see some warning signs, just you've got to peel back the layers and ask the person what's going on. Most conversations we have in life, they're just surface ones. G'day, how you going? That sort of thing, and that's perfectly fine. But when you notice something is not quite right in someone, you may have to peel back the layers. Even if that person is resistant at the beginning, obviously we don't want to hassle people, but inquire further. So and let them know you've noticed something. It's very powerful.
That's beautiful. Don't be shy to ask direct questions. People often go too much on the, oh, I can't ask it. Do ask the question directly. If you really have a gut instinct about that, then rather ask that question one too many times than not asking it at all. It is okay to ask, are you actually thinking of taking your own life? Just ask it directly. I know it's confronting, I understand that, but please don't be shy to ask that question, and it really can help.
And don't be shy to use the suicide word, because it's very powerful. Are you having thoughts of suicide? Use that word. It's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Name it what it
Carolyn, is. Yes. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for answering these questions for us. And if you watch this back in a replay and you have any questions, please don't be shy. Reach out, ask the questions below. If you feel they're too personal, please feel free to PM myself or Carolyn. Are you okay with that if people were to send you a PM, or would you rather not? I'm absolutely okay with either.
I'll just come by you then, Marie. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if you feel okay with sharing this question below in the comments, please do so. We can get back to you. If you feel they're too personal, please do feel free to send me a PM. But also, if you feel like this should actually go to a GP, then don't be shy. Reach out for help, reach out for help, reach out for help. I know it's challenging, but it's really important, and it is okay. There doesn't have to be anything wrong with you to do so. So with that being said, I really appreciate your time, Carolyn. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you for your honest and open comments here as well. And yeah, this is Carolyn and Marie signing off. Bye for now.
Bye.